Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we have a gameplay I recorded on Magic Online, and I want to know your thoughts. Do you enjoy seeing online gameplay or normal webcam games? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Hey, before I start, I wanted to give a shout out to the Weekly Wanderer. They are a weekly newsletter about all things MTG. They do artist spotlights, unusual combos, and even a weekly giveaway. And if you're interested in reading it, I will have the sign up link in the description down below. And best of all, it's free. As for this game, starting off, we have a Karametra Enchantress deck. This is a classic enchantment matters strategy that gains additional ramp from using Karametra as the commander. Next, we have Kinos and Tira of Meletis. This is actually a different version of Teddy's group hug deck, but is a little more tuned since everything is cheaper on MTGO. Next up is a mono black What's Yours Is Mine Gonti list. The aim is to cast Gonti as many times as possible and gain value off having access to other people's library. It also has a sub-theme of reanimation. And lastly is Xantcha. This Rakdos group slug deck aims to pin opponents against each other and leverage Xantcha's card draw ability to keep up with card advantage. But without further ado, let's get onto the gameplay. Karametra starts off the game with the Plains and casts an Enlightened Tutor, finding a Sterling Grove. Kinos plays a tapped Hollowed Fountain and passes. Gonti plays a Swamp and casts a Phyrexian Reclamation, passing after that. Xantcha plays a tapped Akum Refuge and gains a life. Karametra plays a Forest and taps out for a Themeref Enchantress. Kiranos plays a Spire Buff Canal and casts a Kami of the Crescent Moon. Gonti draws an extra from the Kami, but isn't happy when all he sees are more lands. He plays another Swamp, and for those who might not play MTGO, players will often tap their mana so they can automatically pass priority as to not waste their time clock. Xantcha plays a Mountain and passes, discarding a Dread and shuffling it back into her library. Karametra plays another Forest and casts a Growing Rites Itlimoc, but whiffs on the ETB. Kiranos plays an Arid Mesa and casts a Howling Mine. He cracks the fetch for a tapped Temple Garden and passes after that. Gonti, drawing 3 now for his turn, finds some action. He plays another Swamp and casts a Blade of Selves and an Elixir of Immortality, dumping enough so he doesn't have to discard. Xantcha plays a Swamp and casts a Shiny Impetus on the Kami and passes after that. Karametra plays a Plains and casts her Sterling Grove, and follows it up with a Luminarch Ascension. Kiranos plays a Mountain and casts his commander, Kiranos and Tira of Meletis. And heading to combat, he swings the Kami at Karametra to make sure that Luminarch doesn't trigger. And at his end step, triggers it, and people decide if they want to draw or put a land on the battlefield. Gonti draws and plays a Cabal Coffers. He casts a Fleshbag Marauder, causing everyone to sack a creature, and passes after that. Xantcha casts a Gilded Lotus and taps it for a Sin Prodder. He follows it up with a Rakdos Carnarium, bouncing a Mountain, and passing after that. Karametra plays a Forest and casts her commander, Karametra, God of Harvest, and follows it up with a Carpet of Flower, passing after that. Kiranos casts a Magus of the Vineyard, and follows it up with a Horn of Greed, playing a tapped Breeding Pool, drawing from the Horn. He then heads to combat, swinging the Kami at Gonti, and at his end step, Gonti activates his Phyrexian Reclamation to grab the Fleshbag Marauder. Gonti draws and plays a Swamp, drawing from the Horn. He then casts his Fleshbag, causing everyone to sacrifice again. He follows it up with a Sorin Markov, plusing her to drain Karametra for 2. He passes and goes to discard, discarding a Runescarred Demon. Xantcha plays a Mountain and draws from the Horn. He casts a Bedevil to kill the Sorin, then a Thematic Compass, and lastly a Bitter Feud, choosing Gonti and Kiranos. Karametra chooses not to gain mana from the carpet and plays a Plains, drawing from the Horn. He then taps a bunch of mana and uses it to start producing a bunch of angels, and at her end step, the Itlimoc flips. Kiranos plays a Forest Fruition, and then plays a Forest, drawing from the Horn. He heads to combat and swings the Kami at Gonti, dealing extra damage due to the Bitter Feud, and passing after that. Gonti plays another Swamp and draws from the Horn. He then reanimates his Runescarred Demon with his Footsteps of the Goryo and draws 7 from the Fruition. He then tutors from the Demon. He follows it up with a Conjurer's Closet, drawing from the Fruition. Then a Nihil Spellbomb, drawing from the Fruition again. After, he casts a Mana Crypt, drawing from the fruition, into a Soul Ring, drawing from the fruition. Next, he casts an Expedition Map, drawing from the fruition. He then heads to his end step and blinks the demon before he has to sacrifice it to the footsteps. He tutors out another card, and then has to discard down to 7. Xantcha plays another mountain and draws from the horn. He then casts a Rakdos Locket, drawing from the fruition, and then plays a Captivating Crew, drawing from the fruition. And then a Curse of Opulence on Kyrnos, drawing from the fruition. After she activates the crew to steal Gonti's Runescar, she heads to combat, hitting Kyrnos and gaining a treasure from the curse, passing after that. Karametra activates the carpet and then plays a Plains, drawing from the horn. He plays a Light of Hope to destroy the fruition, and in response, Gonti flashes out a Necromancy, getting a Phyrexian Delver. Gonti wants to draw off the fruition before it gets destroyed. The Delver brings back Kikusho. Karametra follows it up by casting a Greater Oromancy, and then an Enchantress's Presence, as well as a Smothering Tide, drawing off the presence, an Authority of the Consuls, drawing from the presence, and lastly a Druid's Repository, drawing from the presence. For some reason, Karametra doesn't attack. Man, he didn't attack?
Steven, this is Moto. Nobody attacks.
God, he's got so many fucking 4/4 flyers, and he didn't attack? And at her end step, Gonti has to sacrifice the Delver. Kyrnos doesn't pay for any of the Tithe triggers, and then casts a Xurta Ancient, gaining Karametra 1 life. He follows it up with a Font of Mythos, because hey, who doesn't want to draw cards with a Smothering Tithe out? He then plays a Forbidden Orchard, drawing from the horn, and he taps it for mana, giving Gonti the Spirit. He heads to combat and swings the Kami at Karametra, who doesn't block. Gonti wins the Crypt trigger, and then doesn't pay for any of the Tithe triggers either. He plays an Orborg and then draws from the horn. He casts a Strionic Resonator and then Reanimate on his Viscera Seer. He next sacks the Kikusho to Scry 1. He Strionics the Death trigger, and then Animate Deads the Kikusho back, but just to sacrifice it again. He brings it back again with the Phyrexian Reclamation, and sacrifices it once again. At this point, he realizes he should have put the Blade of Selves on the Kikusho and swung before he started sacrificing it though. So instead, he puts it on the Runescar Demon and swings it at Xantcha, triggering Myriad and tutoring up 2 more cards. Because of the feud, he actually ends up taking out Kyrnos and then passes, and at his end step, he blinks the demon with a Conjurer's Closet, and has to discard down to 7 again. Xantcha doesn't pay the Tithe triggers, and plays a Volrath Stronghold for land, and then casts an Overloaded Vandal Blast, to which Gonti cracks his Nihil Spellbomb, and exiles her graveyard, but doesn't draw, and Karametra pops her treasure to make more angels. Xantcha then follows it up with a Blasphemous Act to wipe away the board, and lastly a Stolen Strategy, passing after that. Unfortunately, at this point, the Karametra concedes, and Gonti is sad because he wanted to cast his Wake of the Dead during her turn. Also, Xantcha's Thematic Compass transforms into a Spire of Araska, and Gonti brings back his Phyrexian Delver. Gonti then plays a Swamp and casts the Delver to bring back Shieldred, and then casts a Cage Stunt, although he probably should have done that in the opposite order. Xantcha triggers the Stolen Strategy and then casts a Dreadbore on Gonti's Shieldred. Then she casts a Rise of the Dark Realms, and Gonti responds by bringing back his Duplicant, Kikusho, Runescar, and Shieldred back to hand as to not give it to his opponent. Xantcha then casts an Atali and extorts it. Tired of the shenanigans, Gonti just casts an Sanguinate on his turn, where X is 25 for the game. Closing thoughts. I thought this game was interesting and overall well played. There were a few questionable plays like not swinging or getting rid of fruition before casting all your spells, but I thought everyone had a chance to play the game, and overall it was a pretty fun game. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay, and if you did, leave a like and consider subscribing, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.